In 1983, 3 miners mysteriously vanished without a trace from the depths of the Silver Creek mine in Montana. The community was left haunted by unanswered questions, speculation, and lingering fears. Now, 29 years later, a shocking discovery. Inside the long-abandoned mine has brought the forgotten mystery roaring back to life. What secrets have been buried deep underground for nearly 3 decades? And what truly happened to those missing men? The cold September morning settled quietly over the mountains of Montana, draping the town of Silver Creek in a thick mist. The early chill hung in the air, clinging stubbornly to the miners' skin as they gathered near the entrance of the Silver Creek mine, their breath forming small white clouds in front of their faces. It was 1983, a year that seemed ordinary, but would soon become engraved in local memory. Inside the modest wooden building, miners adjusted their helmets and strapped on their gear, chatting idly to push away the morning sleepiness. There, near the door, stood Jack Hudson. At 56 years old, Jack was the natural leader of the team. A tall man with calm eyes and a reassuring smile, Jack had spent most of his life beneath the earth, the dim glow of lanterns and muffled echoes of pickaxes becoming his world. Everyone respected him, not just for his knowledge, but for his quiet strength. Yet behind his composed demeanor was a hidden sorrow. A silver pocket watch hung from his vest, its soft ticking a constant reminder of his greatest pain, the loss of his young son, Luke, years earlier in a tragic accident. Ever since, Jack had silently vowed never to fail again, never to lose another soul under his watch. Standing close by was Rick Saunders, the youngest of the trio, barely 28, full of energy and an ever-present smile. Rick wore his mining helmet tilted slightly to one side, a quirk that had become his trademark. His laugh was infectious, always bouncing off the tunnel walls, brightening even the darkest days underground. Rick dreamed constantly of leaving mining behind, often talking about faraway places and adventures beyond the shadow of Silver Creek. His ambition sometimes drew laughter from older miners, but his sincerity and charm made him impossible to dislike. At the far end, leaning quietly against the equipment lockers, stood Henry Davis, known simply as Hank. He was 38, but carried himself with an air of someone far older, burdened by experiences he kept tightly locked within. Hank spoke little, his voice low and measured whenever he did. Everyone noticed the way he obsessively twirled an old worn coin between his fingers, always spinning it nervously as though it held answers to secrets he couldn't share. Hank was known for his uncanny skill in detecting valuable veins of ore and hidden passages, but even his closest colleagues knew little about his personal life, leaving Hank shrouded in mystery. As the morning shift whistle sounded, the 3 men picked up their gear, exchanging quick nods before entering the mine. Each step echoed softly against the cold stone walls. Soon, the warm morning air disappeared, replaced by the familiar chill of the underground. The darkness closed in around them, illuminated only by the soft glow of their headlamps. Inside the tunnels, work unfolded with practiced routine. Jack carefully examined the support beams, making sure everything was structurally sound. Rick joked playfully, keeping spirits high despite the laborious task ahead. Hank quietly studied the rock formations, searching for clues about where valuable minerals might lie hidden. Yet, beneath the normal routine, an unspoken tension slowly brewed. Jack noticed how Hank seemed more distant lately, his silence heavier than usual. Rick had also become unusually restless, frequently talking about dreams of wealth and a better life, far more passionately than before. Jack felt a quiet unease, but kept his worries hidden, determined not to allow suspicion to fracture their bond. Hours passed quietly. The mine was filled with the rhythmic sound of tools striking stone, the occasional laughter echoing off distant walls. Lunchtime arrived, and the men gathered briefly near a tunnel junction. They ate quickly, silently lost in private thoughts. Jack occasionally checked his silver pocket watch, its gentle ticking grounding him. Hank's coin twirled continuously, faster and more nervously than ever. Rick, trying to ease the tension, shared exaggerated stories of his imaginary future. But their laughter was subdued, their camaraderie overshadowed by something intangible, yet undeniable. As the shift drew to an end, Jack carefully marked their progress on a worn map, announcing calmly that it was time to surface. But as they began their journey back through the winding tunnels, something caught Hank's attention, a faint sparkle embedded in the stone wall. Hank stopped abruptly, shining his lamp carefully on the shimmering object. Rick leaned in, eyes wide with excitement. Jack felt his heartbeat quicken, instinctively aware they had discovered something extraordinary, a hidden deposit of dazzling gems embedded deep within the mine walls. An atmosphere of silent awe settled over them, the realization of potential wealth overwhelming. In that instant, their shared ambitions, fears, and hidden desires collided sharply. Jack's cautious wisdom, Rick's eager dreams, and Hank's quiet ambition tangled together in an unspoken understanding. This discovery could change everything. Reluctantly, Jack insisted they leave it for now, returning later to carefully evaluate their find. But Rick and Hank exchanged brief glances, their eyes sparkling with greed. Jack sensed it, yet chose silence, determined to maintain unity and control over the increasingly complicated situation. That evening, as dusk fell over Silver Creek, the mine supervisor conducted his routine attendance call. Miners emerged one by one, responding casually to their names. But when Jack Hudson, Rick Saunders, and Hank Davis were called, only silence answered. Concerned, the supervisor shouted again, louder this time, the echo reverberating uselessly into the tunnel. Anxiety gripped him tightly as he realized the three had not surfaced. Immediately, alarm spread throughout the mining community. Police arrived swiftly, launching an extensive search that spanned days. Miners combed every accessible tunnel, explored deeper chambers, checked emergency routes, but found nothing. Not a trace, not a clue, only unsettling emptiness. Rumors began to spread rapidly, whispers of the miners' supposed disappearance growing into haunting local legends. Days turned into weeks, then months. Families waited desperately, hanging on to fading hope. Finally, with heavy hearts and no answers, authorities officially declared the miners lost. The Silver Creek mine closed permanently, its entrance sealed to prevent future tragedies. The community slowly moved forward, never truly forgetting but gradually accepting that answers might never come. Yet, as the supervisor stood solemnly at the mine's entrance, placing the final lock on the heavy steel door, his heart filled with unanswered questions. The empty darkness of the mine seemed to whisper back at him, its secrets buried deep beneath the earth. He wondered silently, where did Jack, Rick, and Hank truly go? What could have possibly happened? With a deep sigh, he turned away, leaving behind the sealed mine. But as he walked into the fading twilight, he couldn't shake a strange feeling, a quiet certainty that someday, somehow, the truth would emerge from the shadows. A truth that would change everything. That day would come, many years later, in a way no one could ever anticipate. In July of 2012, the small town of Silver Creek, Montana, had almost forgotten the tragedy that occurred nearly 3 decades before. The abandoned mine sat quietly on the outskirts of town, its entrance sealed, becoming a faded symbol of an unresolved mystery. But one morning, the past would violently shake itself awake once again. Ethan Carter was a practical, methodical man in his early 50s, accustomed to routine and detail. His gray hair, carefully combed, gave him an air of quiet authority. He was tasked with inspecting the old Silver Creek mine for potential reopening as a historical tourist attraction. The local council believed visitors might find intrigue in the dark corridors and legends of vanished miners. Ethan, initially skeptical but professional, arrived early that chilly morning, clipboard in hand, ready to assess conditions and make notes. Unlocking the rusted gate, Ethan felt a strange sense of intrusion, as though he were entering someplace sacred, locked away from human eyes. With cautious steps, he entered the darkness, flashlight piercing the shadowed depths. His footsteps echoed quietly as he navigated down the old corridors. Moisture clung heavily to the cold walls, and the smell of damp earth filled his lungs. Gradually moving deeper into the mine, Ethan inspected support beams, jotted down notes about safety concerns, and calculated possible renovation costs. But as he rounded a tight corner, a cold shiver ran down his spine. His flashlight beam suddenly caught something unusual ahead, something reflective, glittering in the dark. Moving closer, Ethan's breathing quickened, his heart thudding louder in his chest. As he approached the strange scene, a shocking image emerged clearly from the shadows, freezing him in place. Seated calmly against the rough stone walls, perfectly arranged in a chilling tableau, were three human skeletons, their bones bleached, and eerily preserved by the mine's unique conditions. Each skeleton still wore mining helmets from the 1980s, the logos faded but recognizable. Ethan recognized them immediately from historical photos. The helmets belonged to miners from that era, Jack Hudson, Rick Saunders, and Henry Hank Davis. But what truly stole Ethan's breath was the astonishing detail around them. Scattered across their laps, shoulders, and around their feet were hundreds of precious gems, diamonds, rubies, sapphires, sparkling brilliantly under the flashlight's beam. The sight was simultaneously macabre and mesmerizing. Ethan stood frozen, mind racing with questions, fear, and disbelief. Why were the skeletons arranged this way? Who had placed these precious stones here, and why? With shaking hands, Ethan backed away slowly, then turned and rushed from the mine, urgently dialing the local authorities as he emerged into daylight. When the police arrived, however, their initial reaction was one of skepticism. The disappearance of the three miners back in 1983 had already consumed extensive resources, resulting in nothing but frustration and unanswered questions. Reluctantly, they reopened the case, although it was clear many thought it was just another dead end. That's when Riley Harper arrived on the scene. Riley was young, recently promoted to detective, and determined to prove herself in a town steeped in tradition. With bright, inquisitive eyes and short chestnut hair tucked neatly behind her ears, Riley carried herself with confidence tempered by the self-awareness of her inexperience. Her arrival at the crime scene sparked whispered doubts among older officers who wondered openly if a rookie could handle such a complex case. But Riley ignored their skepticism. Her determination was visible as she quickly took control, stepping into the shadowed corridors of Silver Creek Mine despite the uncomfortable claustrophobia that she had learned to keep mostly under control. She joked quietly, masking her nerves as officers around her chuckled softly, recognizing her bravery. Inside the mine, Riley examined the chilling scene closely. She noted every detail, from the careful arrangement of the skeletons to the unusual distribution of jewels. Carefully, she ordered the remains and gems to be taken to forensic analysis immediately. Her intuition screamed that the answers lay not in the obvious, but hidden in small, overlooked details. Days later, forensic reports arrived, delivering startling revelations. Only one set of remains definitively matched one of the original missing miners, Jack Hudson. The other two skeletons belonged to unknown individuals, further deepening the mystery. The lingering questions haunted Riley. Where were Rick Saunders and Henry Davis? Who were these unknown victims, and what was their connection to the mine? This discovery intensified Riley's determination. She began retracing historical records, interviews, and old investigative reports. The complexity of the case was overwhelming, yet thrilling, pulling her deeper into a decades-old puzzle. At night, she studied files endlessly, connecting dots that seemed to lead nowhere. Riley's persistence soon uncovered an unexpected lead. Old journal entries from Jack Hudson hinted at growing tensions and ambitions among the miners. Riley discovered subtle mentions of disputes and secrets buried beneath daily routines. These clues were faint, easily dismissed at the time, but now appeared critically important. The local community watched the renewed investigation cautiously, mixed reactions spreading through Silver Creek. Gossip resurfaced, speculation rampant, each person holding their own theory about the truth buried in the mine. Riley navigated carefully through conflicting memories and half-remembered events, sorting fact from fiction. Returning frequently to the mine, Riley endured increasingly tense moments in confined spaces, confronting her claustrophobia head-on. Her bravery and good-natured humor in these moments became quietly admired by her team. their initial skepticism fading into genuine respect. Then, late one evening, while exploring deeper corridors alone, Riley felt drawn toward an odd section of tunnel where mining equipment lay abandoned. She carefully moved forward, curiosity overriding caution. Behind a partially collapsed pile of stones, she noticed a strange irregularity, a hidden alcove cleverly disguised and previously unnoticed. Heart racing, Riley began to shift loose stones aside, exposing a dark, narrow entrance. Her pulse quickened with excitement and anxiety, recognizing the passage had remained undiscovered through all previous searches. Holding her breath, she squeezed carefully into the hidden corridor, the walls pressing close, heightening her sense of vulnerability. After several tense minutes, the passage opened into a larger chamber, untouched and shrouded in darkness. Riley swept her flashlight around slowly, astonishment growing. Here were discarded mining tools, scattered belongings, and in the far corner, another scattering of small diamonds, abandoned as though in a hurry. A thrill surged through her, confirming that more secrets remained buried within the Silver Creek mine. But the discovery posed even greater mysteries. Who had created this hidden passage? Why were gems left behind? Riley realized immediately the implications. Someone had known about this place. Someone had been here long after the miners vanished. She carefully gathered a few diamonds, ensuring evidence for analysis. As Riley turned to leave the hidden chamber, she noticed the faint marks on the floor, old footprints preserved in dust. Heart pounding with renewed energy, she realized the implications clearly. Whoever created this passage had returned here recently. Back at the police station, Riley shared her findings carefully. Officers exchanged tense looks, recognizing the gravity of this discovery. Silver Creek was hiding far more than they'd imagined. The narrative was deeper and darker, intertwined with greed, betrayal, and violence. Later that night, alone in her apartment, Riley studied the gems she'd discovered, her mind racing through scenarios. The mystery had expanded beyond what anyone initially believed, becoming a labyrinth of deception. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to keep these secrets hidden. Riley knew she was edging closer to dangerous truths someone might still fight to conceal. She leaned back, eyes scanning evidence, determined more than ever to bring justice for Jack Hudson and uncover the fates of Rick Saunders and Henry Davis. But Riley understood clearly now. This case would challenge her beyond anything she'd faced before. Across town, an anonymous figure quietly observed developments, eyes filled with anxiety. Watching Riley's discoveries, the figure knew time was running short. Secrets buried decades ago were rapidly resurfacing, dangerously close to being uncovered. In the silence of the night, a quiet decision was made. The Watcher prepared swiftly, planning to ensure that certain truths stayed buried beneath Silver Creek forever. The mine, now reopened, had awakened far more than just memories. It had reawakened old fears, powerful greed, and desperate secrets that some would do anything to keep hidden. And as Riley carefully pieced together the puzzle, oblivious to the looming threat, she felt certain of one thing. The answers she sought lay deeper still, hidden beyond the darkness of that secret passage. She knew the truth was close, but she also understood the perilous cost of uncovering secrets buried in the shadows for nearly 3 decades. In the days following her startling discovery of the hidden passage inside Silver Creek Mine, Riley Harper's investigation took on a new intensity. Her mind, previously clouded by uncertainty, now buzzed with determination. There were clues buried beneath layers of dust and stone, and she would uncover every single one, no matter how deeply hidden they were. Determined to retrace every step, Riley returned daily to the mine, gradually conquering her lingering claustrophobia. Each visit grew slightly less daunting, yet each descent into the dark labyrinth brought fresh waves of anxiety and dread. She tried to lighten the mood by making jokes to herself, softly muttering quips about narrow spaces and imaginary monsters lurking in shadowy corners. These small moments of humor offered temporary relief from the tense atmosphere, but the mine's weight pressed relentlessly on her psyche. Her meticulous searches soon extended beyond the mine's eerie corridors. She carefully examined the surrounding town, talking discreetly to locals who had lived through the tragedy nearly 30 years prior. Many recalled vague details of the three miners, Jack Hudson, Rick Saunders, and Hank Davis, but few offered useful insights. Memories faded, tainted by folklore and speculation, yet gradually, Riley uncovered faint traces of truth. Several elderly miners and residents recalled subtle tensions among the missing men, small disagreements they had ignored at the time, but now remembered clearly. One retired miner, Frank Jenkins, described an argument he'd witnessed days before, the disappearance. Jack quietly confronting Rick and Hank about something secretive they'd discovered. Though Frank couldn't hear the details clearly, he remembered the intensity of Jack's expression. Serious, worried, perhaps even frightened. This revelation sparked fresh theories in Riley's mind. She wondered what secret discovery could have caused such friction among men who had previously trusted each other implicitly. Frank Jenkins also recalled Jack's uncharacteristic anxiety leading up to that day, describing his friend's behavior as unusually withdrawn, often checking his silver pocket watch, seeming preoccupied with something far beyond the daily challenges of mining. Riley's investigation soon led her to Jack Hudson's old house, now empty and weathered by time. Inside, dust-covered furniture and faded photographs echoed an abandoned past. Carefully searching the home, Riley discovered a hidden compartment behind a loose brick in the fireplace. Inside lay a small, yellowed envelope. Heart pounding, Riley opened it carefully. Inside was a folded letter written in Jack's distinct handwriting, addressed simply to "My dear Helena." The letter detailed Jack's secret plan to extract a hidden treasure of rare gems discovered deep within Silver Creek Mine. Jack mentioned unease about Rick and Hank's growing obsession with wealth, fearing their ambition might drive them to reckless actions. Jack's words conveyed a clear sense of foreboding, as if he sensed danger looming. The discovery of the letter sent chills through Riley. Jack had anticipated something tragic, yet the letter was never sent. Why had he hidden it away? Could this letter have prevented their fate, had it reached Helena in time? Determined to piece together more clues, Riley sought out Hank Davis's last known residence, a modest cottage on the outskirts of town. Entering cautiously, she found the place largely undisturbed since Hank's disappearance, as if frozen in time. On a worn desk, beneath scattered tools and old newspapers, she uncovered an aged, leather-bound diary. Riley flipped through its yellowed pages, recognizing Hank's neat handwriting, each entry increasingly marked by paranoia and anxiety. Hank wrote vividly about the tension within their group after discovering the hidden cache of diamonds. Initial excitement soon gave way to suspicion and mistrust. He described Rick Saunders as growing dangerously eager, constantly pressuring Jack and Hank to seize the gems immediately. Hank's journal entries became progressively darker, filled with fear about Rick's instability and Jack's deepening silence. Paranoia consumed Hank's writings, speculating wildly about conspiracies and threats from unseen enemies. Reading Hank's detailed paranoia deepened Riley's own apprehension. She realized how the miners' ambitions and hidden fears had escalated dangerously, leading to a volatile situation that must have exploded disastrously in the mine. Despite significant breakthroughs, Riley faced continuous frustrations, dead-end leads, conflicting stories, moments when the truth seemed painfully within reach only to dissolve back into uncertainty. Witness testimonies conflicted, memories blurred by time and legend. Each false clue tested her patience, yet strengthened her determination to uncover the buried truth. Meanwhile, the community watched the investigation closely, tension mounting as old wounds reopened. Conversations at local diners and taverns centered around theories and suspicions. Riley was viewed by some with admiration for her persistence, while others saw her as digging too deeply into a past better left untouched. One evening, exhausted from a day of fruitless questioning, Riley returned to her apartment craving rest. She brewed a strong coffee, settling at her kitchen table, spreading documents and evidence before her. While immersed in her notes, her phone buzzed unexpectedly. The message, short and cryptic, stopped her heart cold. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Riley's pulse quickened instantly. She stared at the anonymous message, fingers trembling. Who had sent this warning? Someone in the community? Fearful she was nearing the truth? A hidden accomplice determined to maintain secrecy? She felt anger rise within her. Threats meant she was on the right path. The truth about Jack, Rick, and Hank's disappearance was clearly dangerous enough to provoke intimidation. Riley knew she had touched a nerve, and she refused to back down now. The following days were marked by growing tension and careful vigilance. Riley's determination became relentless, focused sharply by the anonymous threat. Police intensified their presence, concerned about potential danger to Riley, yet she remained stubbornly committed to uncovering every buried secret. Returning regularly to Silver Creek Mine, Riley confronted her claustrophobia head-on, exploring increasingly remote sections. Each narrow tunnel tested her courage and resolve. Yet, despite mounting anxiety, Riley managed to laugh quietly at herself, joking softly about her irrational fear of enclosed spaces, a small act of bravery that earned quiet respect from colleagues who accompanied her. During one meticulous exploration, Riley noticed subtle details she previously overlooked. A series of faint markings etched discreetly into tunnel walls, clearly intended to guide someone unfamiliar with the mine's layout. These markings led her to a previously undiscovered corridor branching deeper into the earth, hidden carefully behind cleverly placed rocks. Following the markings, she cautiously navigated the dark passage, heart racing with anticipation and unease. The corridor narrowed sharply, walls pressing uncomfortably close, forcing Riley to steady herself carefully. Her flashlight beam revealed an ancient-looking wooden support, suggesting an intentionally hidden pathway built long ago. Further ahead, she stumbled upon a small chamber carved crudely into rock, its walls lined with scattered tools, bedding, and the unmistakable glitter of a handful of abandoned diamonds. The atmosphere felt heavy with past tension and fear. Riley realized instantly this was a secret meeting spot, possibly where tensions among miners had reached their boiling point. As Riley examined this secret refuge, her thoughts raced. What exactly had transpired here? Why leave these valuable gems behind? She sensed this chamber had witnessed the violent confrontation hinted at in Jack's letter and Hank's diary. Her phone suddenly vibrated again, interrupting her thoughts sharply. Another anonymous message flashed urgently on the screen. Leave now, or you'll join them. Riley felt an icy chill run down her spine, realizing someone closely monitored her every move. The threat's implications were clear and terrifying. Someone was willing to harm her to prevent the truth from surfacing. Quickly exiting the chamber, Riley hurried back through narrow corridors, emerging finally into daylight, breathing deeply. Back in town, she showed Inspector Nygard the threatening messages, confirming the danger surrounding her investigation. Nygard insisted she halt temporarily for safety, but Riley adamantly refused, understanding her persistence was vital to solving the case. Returning home that night, Riley sat alone, processing each discovery. She pieced together clues from Jack's letter, Hank's diary, and the hidden chamber. Each detail painted a clear picture of ambition, paranoia, and betrayal spiraling out of control. But crucial questions remained unanswered. Who had survived? Besides Rick, where had they hidden the rest of the treasure? And who now sought to silence her? As darkness settled quietly outside her window, Riley pondered these mysteries deeply, aware the answers lay just out of reach. She sensed the truth was dangerously close, buried beneath layers of deception and secrecy. Her phone buzzed softly again, causing her breath to catch. This time, the anonymous sender offered a chilling revelation. You've been warned. The secrets of Silver Creek belong buried forever. Riley set her phone down carefully, steeling herself against fear. Whoever sent these messages was becoming desperate, reckless even, suggesting she was closer to unraveling everything than ever before. The stakes had risen dramatically. Alone in the quiet night, Riley vowed silently she would not be intimidated. She would find the truth about Jack Hudson, Rick Saunders, and Hank Davis, whatever the cost. Their story would no longer remain hidden beneath shadows of greed and betrayal. But Riley also understood the profound danger she now faced. She had entered a deadly game of secrets, ambition, and murder. A game that would test her courage, resilience, and commitment to justice like never before. Riley Harper had always been taught that courage wasn't about ignoring fear. It was about facing it head-on. Now, standing amidst a whirlwind of threats and warnings, she felt the weight of her choices pressing down upon her shoulders. Despite the anonymous messages clearly meant to intimidate her, Riley knew she could not stop. Justice demanded persistence, and her commitment to the miners of Silver Creek Mine was stronger than the fear that sought to paralyze her. As dawn broke over the small Montana town, Riley intensified her investigation. She began methodically, combing through historical archives and bank records, determined to uncover every hidden connection. She spent countless hours buried among dusty files and yellowed ledgers, her eyes straining under dim library lights. Days turned into nights, and slowly, patterns emerged. Riley uncovered old bank statements dating back to 1983, the year of the miners' disappearance. These documents revealed unusual large sums of money transferred secretly between accounts linked directly to Jack Hudson, Rick Saunders, and Henry Davis. Even more troubling, these transactions also connected them indirectly to accounts belonging to other miners never previously suspected. Two names stood out prominently among the others: Frank Adams and Paul Sinclair. Neither had been directly linked to the miners' disappearance, but now their financial involvement hinted at a deeper conspiracy. Riley felt an icy chill as she realized these two men had been quietly dismissed in initial investigations, their names lost in the shuffle of rumors and half-truths. Digging deeper, Riley discovered Adams and Sinclair had quietly left town shortly after the disappearance. Both had vanished without explanation, leaving behind minimal trace or suspicion. Their sudden departure now seemed anything but coincidental. Intrigued and cautious, Riley began tracing their movements through historical records, interviews, and distant acquaintances. Small-town gossip hinted that Adams and Sinclair had been seen in heated discussions with Jack and Hank before the miners vanished, sparking questions about their true involvement. But each promising lead ended frustratingly in another dead end, their whereabouts lost to time and faded memories. The pressure mounted steadily on Riley. Her superiors urged caution, emphasizing the threats she had received, yet her determination refused to waver. Her office desk became a fortress of scattered evidence, her walls plastered with maps, notes, and photographs. Riley worked relentlessly, unwilling to surrender to intimidation or fatigue. One rainy evening, Riley received an unexpected call from an elderly woman named Margaret Foster, who had lived near Frank Adams decades earlier. Margaret described Adams as quiet, yet unsettled, frequently meeting strangers late at night, his home always locked and windows tightly shuttered. Margaret recalled a single occasion when she glimpsed him loading heavy bags into his truck. Bags she suspected carried something far more valuable than ordinary belongings. Riley's pulse quickened. Margaret's description matched precisely the timeline shortly after the miners' disappearance. But her excitement turned swiftly to frustration. Margaret remembered no other details, and Adams's trail quickly vanished again, leaving Riley with yet another tantalizing yet incomplete puzzle piece. Driven by an instinct she couldn't ignore, Riley turned her attention back to the Silver Creek mine. She re-examined mining logs, old employee lists, and company records. Late one night, buried among documents in a forgotten storage box, she discovered faded letters from Paul Sinclair, addressed to Jack Hudson. The letters spoke cryptically about hidden assets and necessary actions. The tone grew increasingly tense, hinting at disagreements and growing mistrust between the miners. Each revelation drew Riley closer to the truth, but frustration built alongside every near discovery. Her sleep grew restless, each new clue bringing her no closer to final answers. Days became blurred cycles of investigation and disappointment, yet she refused to falter. Her determination intensified with every setback, fueled by the voices of those lost in Silver Creek Mine, whose stories demanded justice. Then, unexpectedly, a local bank archivist called Riley urgently. The archivist had uncovered an old safety deposit box, sealed in 1983, left untouched for nearly 30 years. Riley hurried immediately to the bank, anxiety bubbling within her. Inside the safety deposit box, she found old photographs, mining, maps, and several handwritten notes signed by Frank Adams. One letter stood out starkly. It mentioned a confrontation in the mine, a plan to claim discovered jewels, and a desperate need for secrecy. Adams referred cryptically to Rick Saunders, describing him as unstable and unpredictable. Riley felt the room spin. Could Rick have become a threat to their secret? Could this explain the violence hinted at in Jack's letter? As Riley left the bank, her mind raced. Each clue drew her deeper into the complex narrative of greed, betrayal, and paranoia. Yet answers remained frustratingly out of reach, hidden behind a veil of secrecy. Returning to the mine once more, Riley meticulously retraced the miners' known paths. Every tunnel, corridor, and hidden alcove was thoroughly re-examined, her claustrophobia becoming merely background noise against her determination. After hours of exploration, something caught her attention. A partially collapsed section of tunnel wall, easily overlooked amidst the debris. Curiosity piqued. She carefully removed fallen stones, revealing another hidden compartment. Inside were aged documents, faded and fragile. Most shocking among them was an official record of employment under an assumed identity. Richard "Rick" Saunders, now known as Richard Simmons, recorded as living quietly in a small town far north of Montana near the Canadian border. The date on the record was marked clearly, 1985, 2 years after Rick's supposed disappearance. Riley felt her pulse race. This revelation was explosive. Rick Saunders had survived and was living under a new identity. This discovery reshaped the entire narrative, confirming suspicions that Rick had escaped the mine alive and deliberately remained hidden for decades. Riley's excitement was tempered by caution. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to hide Rick's survival. Who had helped him create a new identity, and why had he remained silent all these years? Gathering herself quickly, Riley returned to the police station, sharing her shocking discovery with Inspector Nygard. The revelation sparked immediate action. Nygard mobilized resources swiftly, focusing on locating Richard Simmons urgently. Riley felt a surge of renewed hope, convinced the truth was finally within their grasp. But just as progress accelerated, another anonymous message appeared on Riley's phone, chilling in its directness. "Stop now. Next time, we won't warn you." The threat struck Riley deeply, yet she refused to retreat. The presence of Rick alive, hiding under a false identity, deepened her resolve, compelling her forward with even greater intensity. With police assistance, Riley quickly identified the small remote village where Rick had lived undetected for years. Officers discreetly began surveillance, confirming Rick's quiet existence under the alias Richard Simmons. Despite aging, Rick was easily recognizable, his familiar posture, even the slight tilt of his hat unmistakably the same. Riley traveled north immediately, heart hammering with anticipation. Approaching the remote village, she carefully planned her encounter, knowing Rick's cooperation would be crucial. Near dusk, she approached Rick's modest home, nestled quietly in the isolated wilderness. Standing at the doorway, Riley knocked firmly, her breath shallow with tension. The door opened slowly, revealing Rick Saunders, now older, visibly worn by years of secrecy. He stared silently at Riley, eyes filled with weary recognition. "Rick Saunders." She spoke gently, compassionately yet firmly. "It's time to stop hiding. The truth needs to be told." Rick hesitated, emotions flickering rapidly across his face, fear, regret, and something resembling relief. He nodded slowly, opening the door wider to invite her in. Inside, their conversation unfolded slowly, Rick revealing years of guilt and paranoia. He confirmed the miners had discovered a secret stash of valuable diamonds hidden deep within the mine. Rick described escalating tensions, how Jack Hudson had resisted their growing greed, causing friction. The night of their disappearance, a violent confrontation erupted among the miners and two previously unsuspected accomplices, Frank Adams and Paul Sinclair. In the chaos, Jack and another miner had been killed. Terrified, Rick and Hank Davis escaped through the hidden tunnel discovered by Riley. They fled with most of the gems, leaving the remaining diamonds scattered with the bodies as a decoy. Rick confessed living in fear ever since, isolated, haunted by his actions. Hank had died years earlier, burdened heavily by guilt. Rick's revelations clarified the tangled web of deceit, confirming the fates of the miners, but leaving the whereabouts of the stolen gems unknown. Riley left Rick's home profoundly shaken, yet determined to finish unraveling the truth. The community back in Silver Creek reeled as the shocking story spread rapidly. Rumors intensified, old wounds reopened painfully, questions lingered fiercely. Where were the diamonds now? That evening, Riley uncovered one final clue, a blurred, aging photograph hidden among old mine records. Squinting carefully, she saw Rick clearly, years after his disappearance, holding something recognizable, a distinctively marked bag matching descriptions of one missing during the miner's final shift. The photograph confirmed everything. Rick Saunders had survived, escaped, and lived secretly with the stolen treasure. Riley felt a surge of triumph and apprehension. This image proved decisively Rick's long-hidden truth. Yet, deeper mysteries remained unanswered. Someone had been threatening her throughout this investigation. Who sought desperately to maintain secrecy, willing to harm to protect hidden truths? As night descended over Silver Creek, Riley realized clearly her investigation was far from over. The photograph was her strongest clue yet, but it raised critical questions. Where was the treasure now? Who else was involved in protecting it? She knew her pursuit would intensify, risks growing exponentially. But justice demanded perseverance, regardless of danger. With resolve, Riley prepared herself for the final, most dangerous chapter yet to come, uncovering who was truly behind the deadly secrets of Silver Creek Mine. Riley Harper felt the weight of the photograph she had discovered pressing heavily on her mind. It was undeniable proof that Rick Saunders had survived the events at Silver Creek Mine, living under a false identity for nearly 3 decades. Determined to find him, she intensified her investigation, following every possible trail through old records, witness accounts, and historical archives. Her relentless pursuit finally paid off when a trusted informant provided crucial information about a small town near the Canadian border, an isolated place where a man matching Rick's description had been spotted. Riley and her team quickly set off, traveling along winding mountain roads toward this remote community, each mile heightening the tension they felt. When they reached the small town of Boundary Creek, just across the border, Riley felt her pulse quicken. This quiet settlement, surrounded by dense forest, had only a handful of scattered homes, a perfect hideaway for someone wanting to disappear unnoticed. Quietly and methodically, Riley's team approached local residents, showing photographs and gently questioning them about a man named Richard Simmons. One elderly resident, a woman named Eleanor Thompson, recognized Rick immediately from the photograph. She nodded gravely, confirming that the man in the photo had lived nearby for many years, keeping to himself in a small cabin just outside town. Eleanor described Rick as quiet, nervous, and reclusive, always avoiding interaction and visitors. Riley felt her chest tighten with anticipation. The pieces were finally falling into place. The team moved swiftly, cautiously toward Rick's cabin, nestled deep within a wooded area far from prying eyes. Their approach was silent and strategic, the forest's thick trees concealing their movements. When they finally reached the small structure, Riley signaled quietly, and the officers quickly surrounded it. The cabin appeared aged and worn, with faded paint and boarded windows, suggesting years of neglect. Riley stepped forward carefully, heart racing, and knocked firmly on the weathered wooden door. For several tense moments, silence filled the air. Riley knocked again, louder and more insistently. Finally, the door creaked open slowly, revealing Rick Saunders. Time had aged him considerably. His hair thin and gray, his face lined deeply, with worry and stress, but his eyes remained unmistakably sharp. His expression shifted from shock to resignation in a matter of seconds. "Rick Saunders?" Riley asked calmly yet firmly. He hesitated briefly, then sighed deeply, nodding slowly. I knew someone would find me eventually, he whispered, stepping back and allowing them inside. Riley entered cautiously, observing the cabin's cluttered, sparse interior. Papers, books, and old photographs were scattered chaotically, hinting at years spent alone and paranoid. Rick sank heavily into an old chair, visibly defeated, his shoulders slumped beneath decades of hidden guilt. Under gentle yet firm questioning, Rick slowly began revealing the haunting truth of what had happened all those years ago. His voice trembled as he spoke, the memories clearly painful. He described in detail how Jack Hudson and Henry Davis had planned carefully to secretly retrieve and sell the hidden diamonds discovered deep within Silver Creek Mine. Jack, driven by desperation following the tragic loss of his son, had agreed to the plan reluctantly, hoping to provide security and a better life for his family. But their plans were overheard by Frank Adams and Paul Sinclair, two fellow miners who had grown suspicious of their secretive behavior. Adams and Sinclair confronted Jack, Hank, and Rick deep within the mine, demanding their share of the discovered fortune. Tension rapidly escalated into violence. A fierce fight erupted within the narrow, dimly lit tunnels, shadows dancing menacingly against the rough stone walls. Amid the chaotic struggle, Jack Hudson was fatally wounded, defending himself and his friends. Another miner, one of Adams and Sinclair, also fell victim to the violence, leaving two dead miners in the shadows of the tunnels. Panicked and terrified, Rick and Hank fled hastily through the secret passage they had previously discovered, carrying the majority of the precious gems with them. They left behind a carefully staged scene, scattering diamonds around the bodies, hoping to confuse any future investigation. Rick's voice broke as he detailed the crushing guilt and paranoia that had overwhelmed him ever since. He described years, spent hiding, moving frequently, always looking over his shoulder. Hank had lived similarly, their friendship dissolving into isolation as guilt and suspicion consumed them both. Eventually, Hank passed away, burdened by remorse and depression, leaving Rick utterly alone with their shared secret. Riley listened, carefully, absorbing each devastating revelation, compassion filling her eyes. Rick described their final hiding spot for the diamonds, a secluded cave near the border, hidden deeply beneath the thick forest. His voice became a quiet whisper as he confessed that he had never returned to the cave since burying the gems there. Determined, Riley and her team promptly set out toward the hidden location. Guided by Rick's detailed descriptions, they navigated dense woodland paths, driven by anticipation. Their journey was difficult and taxing, yet excitement and tension surged within them. Upon finally reaching the described spot, Riley felt a surge of exhilaration mixed with caution. The cave entrance lay concealed beneath thick brush, a perfect hiding spot. Carefully removing tangled vines and loose stones, Riley stepped into the dimly lit cavern. Yet her heart sank immediately. The cave, though clearly once used to hide treasure, now lay completely empty. The space was bare, no diamonds, no gems, no trace of wealth or answers. Only silence greeted them, heavy and oppressive. Frustration washed over Riley. Who had known about this secret cache? Who had removed the treasure before their arrival? The missing gems deepened the mystery further, indicating that another person had been involved. Someone aware of Rick and Hank's secret. Someone who had carefully tracked and waited. Someone willing to threaten and manipulate to maintain control over this buried fortune. Returning to Silver Creek, Riley felt burdened by unanswered questions. Her thoughts raced constantly, pondering every detail, retracing every clue. She shared her frustrations openly with Inspector Nygaard and Eric Larson, their faces mirroring her concern and determination. Later that evening, alone at her desk, Riley's phone buzzed suddenly, shattering her thoughts. Another anonymous message appeared clearly on the screen, chilling and direct. You were warned. The truth must remain hidden. Stop now or face severe consequences. Her heart raced violently. Someone was clearly still protecting secrets, watching her every move, growing more desperate and threatening with each revelation uncovered. Riley understood clearly the danger she now faced. Her investigation had reached a critical point, forcing the hand of whoever hid behind the threats. Undaunted, Riley resolved to press onward, fully aware of the escalating risks. She meticulously analyzed the messages, trying to trace their origins. Each attempt led frustratingly to anonymous accounts, encrypted networks, and dead ends. Clearly, the sender was intelligent, resourceful, and determined to stay hidden. Riley felt both tension and urgency growing. Who was pulling these strings from behind the shadows? Who else had known about the treasure? Who had moved the gems before her discovery? The unanswered questions gnawed at her relentlessly. Driven by instinct, Riley revisited the archives, poring over photographs and records, looking for any overlooked clue. Late into the night, exhausted yet determined, she stumbled upon another old, blurred photograph tucked away in a sealed archive box. The photo, yellowed with age, depicted a small group of men gathered around a remote cabin. Riley recognized Jack Hudson, Hank Davis, Rick Saunders, and one other figure, partially obscured but clearly identifiable as Frank Adams. The date on the photograph showed 2 months after the miner's disappearance, evidence that Adams had also survived. A shiver of realization ran through Riley. Frank Adams, the miner previously assumed dead alongside Jack, had also survived the initial conflict. He had escaped unnoticed, hidden for decades, likely orchestrating events from behind the scenes. Adams must have taken the diamonds himself, removing them secretly, remaining hidden all these years. This revelation hit Riley with tremendous force. The hidden threat, the anonymous messages, the vanished treasure, all pointed directly toward Frank Adams. His cunning manipulation had concealed his survival, allowing him to remain hidden and controlling the narrative for years. Riley realized she faced her greatest challenge yet. Frank Adams, alive and desperate to maintain secrecy, represented a formidable opponent. His resources, cunning, and ruthlessness made him dangerously unpredictable. Her quest for truth had unveiled powerful secrets, now placing her directly in Adams' path. The chilling reality settled deeply upon Riley. She had uncovered the full, dangerous truth behind Silver Creek Mine, the betrayal, greed, and violence that had consumed the miners so many years before. Yet justice demanded she confront Adams, despite the risks. Standing alone in the quiet archives, photograph in hand, Riley felt an intense resolve. Frank Adams was still out there, determined to silence anyone uncovering his secrets. But Riley Harper would not be intimidated. She knew exactly what she had to do: find Adams, expose his deception, and bring justice to those whose lives he had destroyed. Riley steeled herself, ready for the final dangerous confrontation ahead. Her courage, strengthened by each discovery, would carry her forward into the final battle for truth and justice. Riley Harper stood alone in her office, the yellowed photograph trembling slightly in her hand. The blurred image of Frank Adams, alongside Jack Hudson, Hank Davis, and Rick Saunders, haunted her. Every hidden truth she had uncovered had led to this moment, each revelation pulling her deeper into a decades-old mystery filled with betrayal and greed. But something within her whispered that she was still missing a crucial piece. Determined, Riley carefully revisited every lead, every conversation, every moment of tension and suspicion she'd encountered during the investigation. The answers lay hidden somewhere, buried beneath layers of carefully constructed deception. She decided to revisit Hank Davis's old cottage once more, hoping that perhaps something previously overlooked might hold the final clue. Arriving at the modest home, Riley moved methodically through each room, examining objects with a new intensity. The interior was quiet and untouched, as though Hank had only recently stepped outside. Moving into the bedroom, Riley's attention focused on an old worn dresser partially concealed behind boxes. Carefully shifting the boxes aside, she noticed a hidden drawer underneath, clearly designed to remain unseen. Her pulse quickened as she gently pried the drawer open. Inside lay a leather-bound notebook, its pages worn and faded with age. As she flipped through carefully, Riley's heart began to race. Hank Davis had documented everything in meticulous detail: dates, meetings, names of people involved, even cryptic notes about potential allies and accomplices. But as Riley scanned the names, a chill ran down her spine. Among them stood out one name that shocked her deeply: Ethan Carter. Ethan Carter had served as the mine supervisor back in 1983. Known as a quiet, reliable figure in Silver Creek, Ethan was respected by all. Riley's disbelief quickly turned into cold dread. She had trusted Ethan implicitly, relying on his testimony and insights. Yet Hank's notes described Ethan clearly as an accomplice, someone who had carefully covered tracks, manipulated evidence, and helped the miners hide the crime for years, driven by his own hidden greed. Riley's discovery of Hank Davis's notebook shattered everything she thought she knew. Hidden in its pages was a truth she hadn't expected. Ethan Carter, the long-trusted mine supervisor, had been part of the cover-up all along. Shocked, she confronted him directly, and Ethan, weary after decades of silence, finally confessed. He admitted that when Jack, Rick, and Hank found the hidden gems, greed spiraled out of control. A fight left Jack dead, and Ethan made the desperate choice to hide the scandal, protect the mine's reputation, and secure his own future. Along with Frank Adams, he erased evidence, created false identities for the survivors, and lived under the crushing weight of guilt. The next day, under Riley's insistence, Ethan faced the townspeople. His public confession left Silver Creek in stunned silence. He revealed how Jack Hudson had tried to resist greed, sacrificing his life in the process. With tears in his eyes, Ethan was taken into custody. His decades of deception finally ended. In the aftermath, Jack Hudson was honored as the hero he truly was. The town gathered to restore his name, and his widow, Helena, accepted the tribute through tears. Riley, too, was recognized. Her persistence and courage had uncovered the truth that had haunted Silver Creek for nearly 30 years. But just as the town began to breathe again, Riley received a letter in Rick Saunders' handwriting. Inside, he confessed his remorse and revealed the true location of the missing diamonds, untouched for decades. Holding the letter, Riley felt the weight of a new dilemma. Should she reveal the treasure and risk reigniting the same greed that once destroyed lives, or keep it hidden forever to preserve the fragile peace? Alone with the letter, Riley understood that the mine's greatest secret wasn't the gems themselves. It was the moral burden of deciding whether the truth should always be told.